You have come here, perhaps not knowing why. Perhaps there is a restlessness in you that no logic can pacify, no doctrine can calm, no lover can soothe. You sit, breathing, thinking, waiting, but not for anything in particular. It is as if your soul itself remembers a time before time. And your waking life has become a dream you do not recognize. This, my dear listener, is the path of the old soul. And it is to you I speak now, not with authority, but with invitation, not with answers, but with symbols, for only the symbolic can carry the weight of what is eternal in you. We must begin not with explanations, but with remembrance. You are not merely a product of your parents, nor of your culture, nor of your time. You are the echo of a journey that began long before you had a name. The old soul lives within the stream of human becoming, like a deep current beneath the surface of rushing water. It is not always seen, but it shapes everything. And yet, so many of you feel lost. Why? Because the world has forgotten the language of the soul. The world has forgotten the necessity of myth, of shadow, of archetype, of communion with the inner world. But you, yes, you have not forgotten. You are haunted by a truth you cannot speak and cannot ignore. That is the mark of the Ancient One hidden within you. Let me now guide you through the mist. For when the old soul feels lost, it is not because it has taken a wrong turn. It is because the world it sees no longer reflects the map it carries within. You may look around and ask, why do I feel so out of place? Why does no one see what I see? This is not arrogance. It is a mourning. The old soul mourns the amnesia of the collective. It mourns the trivialities of mass thought. It mourns the absence of the sacred in the ordinary. And so it retreats into books, into forests, into dreams, into silence. It is in this silence that I invite you now to dwell. Close your eyes. Imagine you are standing at the edge of a forest, not one made of trees, but of symbols, each shadow a forgotten memory, each rustle of wind a whisper from the unconscious. You take a step inside, and the world you thought you knew begins to dissolve. Here, logic bends. Here, time falls in on itself. Here, your forgotten self, the self with a capital S, waits for you. It is not a self of identity, but of totality. It is not what you do or feel or think. It is what you are beneath it all. The path to this self is not straight. It is spiral. It is descent before ascent. It is suffering before integration. It is through the shadow, and that is what the old soul must learn. Again and again to walk willingly into the darkness, not to be consumed, but to reclaim what has been exiled. For your soul has exiled many parts of itself in the name of survival, your rage, your sensuality, your sorrow, your power. But the old soul knows in its bones that nothing truly dies. What is repressed returns. What is ignored becomes fate. This is why you have felt the presence of something unnamed in your dreams. Why certain images strike you with inexplicable familiarity. Why you are drawn to myths, to mystics, to melancholia. You are not broken. You are remembering that the human psyche is not linear, but layered, that the unconscious is not a dungeon. But ancestral, that healing is not fixing, but listening. The archetypes speak to you in your symbols. The wise old man, the great mother, the wounded child, the trickster. These are not mere metaphors. They are tenets of your inner world. And when one dominates too strongly, when the wounded child becomes your only voice, when the trickster sabotages every new beginning, you feel lost not because you are failing, but because you are being called to balance, to integration, to individuation. Individuation, the path not of becoming perfect, but of becoming whole, to allow each part of the psyche its rightful place at the table. This is not a path for the many. It is a path for the few, for the courageous, for the lost old souls who are willing to enter the labyrinth of the self without guarantee of applause, reward, or clarity. But I tell you this, those who walk this path find something the world cannot give a center. A source, a peace not based on circumstance, but on communion with the self. You will resist this path. Of course, you will. The ego resists anything that threatens its illusion of control, but resistance is sacred. Resistance reveals where the work must be done, where the light must be shone, where the child still weeps in the dark corner of your psyche, waiting to be held, and you, old soul, are the only one who can do it. You cannot wait for the world to understand. You cannot wait for the culture to catch up. You must begin now, in silence, in honesty, in courage. Let me tell you a dream once shared with me by a woman who felt she was born in the wrong century. She dreamed she stood before a mirror, but the reflection was not hers. It was an ancient woman with eyes like burning coals and a mouth sewn shut with golden thread. The dream disturbed her, but when we opened it together, we found the truth. The ancient self within her had been silenced by lifetimes of not being heard. She had become a ghost, watching silently as the modern self performed for survival. The dream was not a curse. It was a calling. The golden thread could be undone, but only by the dreamer. What dreams are asking for your attention now? What symbols keep appearing? Uninvited, unwanted, yet persistent. These are not accidents. They are messages. The unconscious never wastes its time. It brings to your attention only what is necessary for your wholeness. And often it does so by making you uncomfortable, by disrupting your plans, by dismantling the identities you have so carefully constructed. It is not cruel, it is precise, it is alchemical, and so, dear old soul, you must become the alchemist of your own life. You must take the lead of your wounds, your confusion, for your loneliness, and through the sacred fire of reflection and presence, turn it into gold. Not the gold of success or fame or certainty, but the gold of knowing who you are, even in the dark, especially in the dark. For what good is a light that works only in daylight? The light you are called to carry must shine in tombs, in catacombs, in the forgotten corridors of your ancestral psyche. You carry not just your own story, You carry the unlived lives of your ancestors, their traumas, their dreams deferred, their silent prayers. You are the culmination of a lineage that seeks redemption, not through external conquest, but through internal reconciliation. And that is why you often feel tired without cause, why you weep at music. You cannot explain why you long for a world that never was but must be remembered. The old soul is not nostalgic, it is prophetic. It dreams not of the past, but of eternity. If you are hearing me now, then perhaps it is time you stop searching for a map outside yourself. The map is within, and yes, it is incomplete, but the act of walking the path reveals it. You do not need to see the whole path. You need only take the next courageous step. And in doing so, you become a living myth. You become the story that heals the wound, not just in you, but in the collective. You become the elder the future needs. Now listen closely, for this is where many lose their way. Do not mistake your sensitivity for weakness, your depth for dysfunction, your dreams for delusions. You are not broken, you are attuned. And in a world that is increasingly deaf to the inner voice, your attunement will be your greatest trial and your greatest treasure. Do not trade it for approval. Do not dull it to fit in. Rather, sharpen it, hone it. Let it cut through the illusions you have inherited. And the roles you have performed, you will be lonely sometimes. But loneliness is not the same as isolation. Loneliness for the old soul is sacred space. It is the temple where the self speaks most clearly. Do not fill it too quickly with noise or distraction. Sit with it. Let it speak. Let it teach. There is a voice in the stillness that says, you are not who they told you to be. You are more, and you are ancient. That voice is the echo of your original wholeness. And perhaps you wonder, but why me? Why must I carry this depth, this burden? Is this strange clarity? The answer is as paradoxical as the soul itself, because you can, and because you must. The old soul is not chosen in a grand ceremony. It is revealed through suffering, through longing, through the refusal to become numb. You are not here to escape the world, but to re-enchant it, not by preaching, but by presence, not by certainty, but by authenticity. The world does not need more conformity. It needs soul, and soul does not shout. It whispers, it stirs in dreams, it trembles in moments of awe. It lingers in the quiet hour just before dawn. When your defenses are weakest and your truth rises like a mist from the unconscious. You, old soul, are the vessel for that truth. And not the truth of answers, but of presence, of allowing what is real to surface, even if it makes no sense to the world around you. You must understand something now that will liberate you. You were never meant to fit in. You were meant to remember. You were meant to become a mirror, one in which others might glimpse their forgotten wholeness. But to be a mirror, you must become clear. You must polish the dust of cultural conditioning, of false narratives, of inherited fears. You must face the things you were told not to feel. You must speak to the shadows within you that you were taught to fear, not to banish them, but to listen, for within every shadow is a truth exiled too long. Think of the dreamer again. The woman whose reflection was a stitched mouth. The thread of gold was not punishment. It was memory. She had silenced herself to survive. You have turned your back on your power, your knowing, your sensuality, your grief, and yet they are not gone. They walk beside you in the form of projections, of fears, of strange compulsions, and they are waiting to be welcomed back into the temple of your being. You do not need to be healed before you begin, and healing will follow. Begin by saying to yourself, I am willing to see what I have not seen. That is the most sacred vow you can make, for the eyes of the old soul are not meant only for looking outward. They are lanterns for the inner terrain. They reveal forgotten corridors and closed doors. They reveal archetypes waiting patiently in rooms of memory. You locked as a child, open them, walk slowly. You are not alone. Do not mistake your fear for failure. Fear is the gatekeeper of transformation. If you feel fear when approaching a memory, an emotion, a dream, it is because that thing holds power and your psyche has deemed you ready to retrieve it. This is what initiates have always done. They descend, they die before dying, and they emerge not as someone else, but as themselves, undressed from illusions, uncloaked from roles. I remember the dream of a man who wandered in a desert of mirrors. Every reflection showed a different version of him. One was young and angry, another old and bitter, another laughing without sound. None looked like the self he believed himself to be. He panicked, but at the center of the desert stood one mirror covered in ash. When he wiped it clean, there was no image, only light. That was the self, not a mask, not a performance, but essence. You too are wandering through mirrors. Social roles, trauma, responses, family legacies. You believe your identity is the accumulation of what others have told you. But the old soul knows better. You are not your name, your history, your thoughts. You are the still point beneath the spinning wheel. You are the quiet beneath the storm. You are the dreamer before the dream. This knowing will not always make you happy. It will make you whole. And wholeness is more valuable than happiness. Wholeness includes the broken parts, the unwanted emotions, the forgotten selves. You are here to gather them, not banish them. The ego seeks control, the soul seeks communion, and if you live only from the ego, you will always feel fractured. But if you descend into the soul, you will find a unifying principle, a center that no circumstance can shake. It is not easy. Nothing real ever is. The journey of the old soul is marked by betrayal, not just by others, but by the self you thought you were. It is marked by loss of illusions, of dreams that were never yours, of attachments that no longer serve. But every loss, if met consciously, becomes a doorway. The psyche does not destroy, it transmutes, and through every rupture, the self grows larger. You may be asking, where do I begin? You begin with honesty. with noticing, with paying attention to what you avoid, with asking yourself, what am I afraid to feel? What part of me do I pretend doesn't exist? These are not questions of judgment. They are invitations, and the answers do not arrive in words, but in images, in dreams, in synchronicities, in the ache behind your sternum when you see a child laugh, or a bird disappear into the sky. The soul speaks a symbolic language. Learn it. Learn the tongue of metaphor. Learn the resonance of images. The snake, the tree, the cave, the fire, these are not decorations. They are maps. And when they appear in your dreams, your art, your inner world, they are not coincidence. They are coordinates. Follow them. Let them lead you back to yourself. And yes, you may stumble. You may fall back into numbness, into distraction, into cynicism. That too is part of the path. The old soul does not walk a straight line. It spirals. It revisits the same wound at deeper levels. It sees new meaning in old pain. And with each spiral, a new layer is revealed. More tenderness, more clarity, more presence. You may also be tempted to teach before you've integrated, to speak before you've listened. But remember, this wisdom does not rush. It waits, it ferments. Let your soul ripen before you offer it to the world. You are not here to impress, you are here to embody. And embodiment is a slow, sacred process. I once sat with a man who had spent decades reading mystical texts but still felt empty. When we spoke, I asked him one question. What is the one thing your soul is asking of you that you keep ignoring? He wept, not because he didn't know the answer, but because he did, and knowing it meant he could no longer pretend. That is the power of soul truth. It dissolves illusion, not with violence, but with light. It illuminates what you already know but have hidden. You may fear that if you face your truth, you will lose everything, and you might, but you will gain yourself, and from that self, a new world emerges. Not perfect, not painless, but real. And reality, when seen through the eyes of the soul, is luminous even in suffering. You were not made for a life of avoidance. You were made for encounter with beauty, with pain, with mystery, with the eternal. The old soul does not seek escape, it seeks depth. And depth will cost you your surface life, your masks, your comforts, your distraction. But it will give you everything in return, a life lived from the center, not the periphery. You will begin to recognize others like you, not by what they say, but by how they see. There is a slowness in their presence, a gravity, a gentleness that is not weakness but rootedness. When old souls meet, there is no need for explanation. There is only a nod, a breath, a recognition. We remember you are not alone. The forest of the soul is full of those walking quietly, unseen but present. And your journey lights the path for others, often without you knowing. That is the humility of soul work. It radiates, not performs. It influences by essence, not effort. And now, as you listen to my voice, I ask you, can you feel it? The pull toward the center, the quiet beckoning of your own forgotten name. That name is not what the world calls you. It is the vibration of your essence before you were shaped. It is the sound your soul makes in silence. Listen for it. It is the beginning and the end of all your seeking. You were never lost. You were only in exile from your own truth. And truth does not need to be proven. It only needs to be remembered. The task then is not to find yourself in the modern sense through achievement, performance, or validation, but to return to yourself. To return is not to regress, but to rediscover, and that rediscovery, my friend, must be undertaken with reverence, for you are not merely uncovering a forgotten memory, you are awakening a sacred inheritance, one that predates your biography, one that speaks in images, not facts, that stirs in patterns, not paragraphs. The old soul speaks that language fluently, even if the conscious mind has forgotten. You may wonder why your life has been marked by contradiction, why you feel both ancient and vulnerable, wise and weary, capable of immense love, yet susceptible to profound despair. This duality is not a flaw. It is the sign of a soul that has lived many layers of life, even within one incarnation. It is a signature of the archetype of the wanderer, the one who belongs nowhere because they carry the memory of everywhere. And in that memory is a sacred ache, a longing not to escape the world, but to anchor it back into the eternal. This ache is holy. It is the doorway to the sacred. You must not rush to soothe it. You must sit with it, breathe into it, and let it inform you, for within the ache lies your vocation, not your job, not your title, but your soul's calling. The old soul is not driven by what is marketable, but by what is meaningful, and meaning is not found in comfort. It is found where life intersects with soul, often in the places the world tells you to avoid: death, dreams, silence, solitude, shadow. You may have been told you are too sensitive, that you think too much, that you feel too deeply. But I tell you now, these are not deficiencies. These are doorways. Sensitivity is not fragility, it is perception. Thoughtfulness is not paralysis, it is preparation. Depth is not dysfunction, it is dimension. The old soul sees in layers, hears in echoes, feels in archetypes. And because of that, it cannot live a shallow life. To do so would be a betrayal of the very essence it carries. And what does that essence contain? It contains the memory of wholeness, the whisper of Eden, the blueprint of what it means to be fully human, fully divine. But that wholeness is not simple. It is complex, paradoxical, infinite in nuance. The path to it does not lie in rejecting the world, nor in conforming to it, but in integrating it, bringing the unconscious into consciousness, marrying the shadow with the light, embracing the tension of opposites until something larger is born. I tell you now, your symptoms are symbols. Your depression is a descent, not a defect. Your anxiety is a call, not a curse. Your longing is a compass. Your dreams are not nonsense. They are soul messages disguised as absurdity. Begin there. Begin where your culture tells you to dismiss. Begin with what doesn't make sense. For the soul speaks in riddles, and every riddle is a rift in the veil. We live in a world that glorifies speed, but soul work is slow. It does not shout, it murmurs. And to hear it, you must create a space for silence, for stillness, for solitude. Do not be afraid of being alone. The old soul must be alone at times, not to suffer, but to remember. For in that aloneness, the archetypes rise, the ancestors speak, the unconscious sings. And what do they sing of? They sing of your becoming, not in the linear sense, but in the spiral. You are not becoming someone else. You are becoming more fully yourself, shedding what was never yours, integrating what was always waiting. And this becoming will not be marked by applause, but by quiet revelations, a sudden clarity in the middle of grief, a dream that won't let go, a symbol that keeps appearing, a moment of peace for no reason. Trust those moments. They are more real than the noise. They are the self breaking through the ego's dominion. And when the self rises, it does not erase your personality, it sanctifies it. It reorganizes the chaos into cosmos, not by control, but by correspondence, by resonance, by the great alchemy that turns the personal into the universal. Do you see now why you were given this path? Not because you are better than others, but because your soul remembered earlier, and with that memory comes responsibility not to save the world, but to incarnate the truth, to embody what others have forgotten, to remind, not with words, but with presence. The world does not need more sermons. It needs more embodied souls, people who walk with the silence of mountains and the depth of oceans, people who have made peace with their contradictions, who do not need to be right, but to be real, who can stand in the fire of their own becoming and not flinch. You have felt the fire. You are still here. That means something. It means the self has chosen you not to escape the world, but to inhabit it differently, not to fight against it, but to transmute it through your presence, through your rituals, through your dream work, your art, your tears, your silence. These are not small acts. They are revolutionary, for every soul that returns to its center becomes a lighthouse for others. I remember the dream of a man who stood at the edge of a canyon, shouting his name into the void. No edge to return. He fell to his knees in despair, but then a voice from within whispered, "Speak not to be heard, but to remember." He stood, and instead of shouting, he sang, and from the canyon came not an echo, but a harmony. That is the nature of the soul. It does not echo, it harmonizes. And when you live from the soul, the world begins to respond in kind. You may not be able to explain it. People may think you are strange. That is the cost of living mystically in a world that fears miss. But do not betray your knowing. Do not dilute your depth. Walk quietly, but walk fully. Let your life be a ritual. Let your choices be sacred. Let your mistakes be offerings. You are allowed to grieve the life you thought you wanted. You are allowed to release the version of yourself that sought approval. You are allowed to be strange, poetic, unproductive, luminous, tired, wild. For the old soul is not efficient. It is eternal. It carries the rhythm of other realms. And that rhythm is not always convenient, but it is always true. So now I ask you, not as a teacher, but as a fellow traveler, will you answer the call, not with grand declarations, but with small acts of remembrance, a journal by candlelight, a walk without destination, a dream written before it fades, a conversation with your shadow, not to shame it, but to learn. These are the ways of the soul. Humble, holy, human, you are not as lost as you believe. You are simply further along the spiral, and that disorientation you feel is not failure, it is metamorphosis. The caterpillar does not know it is becoming a butterfly. It only knows its skin is too tight. That is where you are now, in the chrysalis of becoming, in the holy darkness, in the tension between who you were and who you are yet to be. Hold it, trust it. Let the old forms fall away. I will not promise that this journey will be easy. I will not tell you that you will be understood. In fact, you may be misunderstood more deeply than ever. For the language of soul is not fluent in the mouth of the world. It must be lived, not explained. And in living it, you may appear foolish to those still invested in the performance, but take heart, every mystic, every initiate, every elder has walked through the same fire. Do not chase the approval of those who have not yet remembered. Bless them and continue walking. In the deep work of individuation, you are dismantling not only your personal illusion, but the collective illusion. You are unweaving the spell of forgetfulness that has kept humanity asleep. And that work often goes unseen. It is not glamorous. It is not rewarded with medals or titles, but it is the most important work there is, because when one old soul awakens, they anchor something eternal into time. They become a portal through which others may pass. They become the living myth that breathes oxygen back into a world gasping for meaning. They become the strange light on the horizon that makes the weary heart say, perhaps I, too, can find my way home. That is your invitation, to become that light, not by fixing others, but by loving your own depth so profoundly that your mere presence becomes a remembrance. That is what it means to be a soul on earth. Not to escape, but to embody, not to shine, but to burn. And when you burn not with rage, but with inner fire, others feel it. They may not know what they feel, but they will feel it. They will feel the truth that lives beneath your words. They will feel the years you spent walking the labyrinth of your own psyche. They will feel the tears you offered in silence, the dreams you dared to follow, the symbols you carried like sacred stones in your pocket. And in that feeling, something in them begins to stir, a longing, a memory, a wild aching. Yes, do not underestimate the power of your being. You were never meant to change the world. You were meant to change your relationship to it. And that shift, subtle, internal, seismic, is what changes the world. Now, if you are still with me, I will speak to you more intimately, to the place in you that has not forgotten, the part that remained untouched even in your deepest wounds. You have seen many lifetimes of forgetting. You have worn many masks. You have tried to be many things. But beneath it all, you are one thing, the living bridge between the timeless and the temporal, the axis around which your entire existence turns. Do not betray that center. Do not abandon it in favor of what is popular, safe, or explained. Hold it, even if it trembles, especially when it trembles. The trembling is holy. And when you feel it, when the old soul in you shivers in recognition, or sorrow, or wonder, pause, bow, say thank you. That is the voice of yourself rising from the depths, asking to be remembered again. You do not need to be anyone else. You do not need to arrive anywhere. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are in the exact place where your next becoming begins. The soul is not in a rush. It works with the patience of roots. Let yourself be rooted. Let yourself be quiet. Let yourself grow down before you grow up. This is the rhythm of initiation. And when the time is right, when the inner winter begins to thaw, you will blossom not into perfection, but into presence. And that presence will carry with it the fragrance of authenticity, the warmth of depth, the gravity of one who has died and returned, bearing the medicine of their own story. Hey, you, dear soul, are that medicine, and now you must carry it, not as a burden, but as a blessing. You must walk the world with it. You must tend it like fire. You must offer it when the moment calls, and protect it when the world forgets. Do not forget. That is my final word to you. Do not forget the truth you heard when the world was quiet. Do not forget the dream that spoke to you when you were most undone. Do not forget the moment you realized you are both ancient and new, both wounded and wise. You are not here by accident. You are not strange. You are not too much. You are the echo of a deeper order, the whisper of a cosmic memory, the tender voice of a world that once knew how to weep and wonder and worship. Be that again. Live that again. Remember who you are, not for pride, but for peace, not for superiority, but for sacred service, and in doing so, become the mirror in which other old souls may remember too. Even now, as you breathe, you are returning. Even now, the self smiles, the dreamer awakens, the myth continues, and the soul is no longer lost. It has simply come home.